Yomoni Yangayam, Tamayana Nijangai, very good and Yabogin, the Ministani, Angayana Savanishu, Taramarabogin, Rumunga Yos and Arani, all also the Rabogin, Amuyana Shoina Riguri, Joe Merobigi, Jerry Yodes Day, Joe Yomerodigo Day, Yalarian, Amuyaloban Yobogin. Erigi yo mero regainit, erigi yo kangai ranjabai, kangai ya nasaba na shu, iro yo kolorong anak, kangai nasaba na shu ay golang, pemero mana, neme barungani, amu mba na yelo olongani orat kala, kangai nasaba na shu erigi yo desidai, tongai rimbogin, negi jo rame lonage, anao monanga masai, meraba irano olonyi bor, naba yana koi merek, meroro bilo. Ena kurugan gideng, meroro bilo, eno lori le modindar, meroro bilo ana laragwa, lele badun. Eme shibuana ngonya ko angkariak, merale ngana alari, meroro bilo ra, erugora anga kenya roberari, mera horobo ogino logon, eno rigiyore sidai, eno robilo na bogin, eno robilo, ronya raigin olari yoling, amen.
Your Excellency, the President, the Right Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, honorable members of Parliament, invited guests, you may now take your seats. Order, members. Your Excellency, Honorable Dr. William Samoei Ruto, CGH, President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, the Right Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, the Honorable Moses Wetangula, EGH MP, honorable members of Parliament. Article 132(1) of the Constitution of Kenya requires the President to address the opening of each newly elected Parliament. By a letter, reference number OP/CAB.26/417/Volume 1, 38, dated 21st of September 2022, His Excellency the President notified the Speakers of Parliament of his intention to address the newly elected Parliament on Thursday, 29th September 22, in the National Assembly Chamber, Parliament Buildings at 2:30 p.m. Accordingly, and pursuant to Article 132(1)(a) of the Constitution, and further pursuant to Standing Order number 24(1) of the Standing Orders of the Senate, by Gazette Notice number 11266, which was published in the Kenya Gazette of 22nd September 2022, I gave notice of this joint sitting to all honorable senators. Honorable members, this joint sitting is therefore properly convened. I thank you.
Your Excellency, Honorable Dr. William Samoei Ruto, CGH, President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, the Honorable Speaker of the Senate, Right Honorable Amason Kingi, the Honorable Lady Justice Martha Koome, EGH, Chief Justice and President of the Supreme Court of Kenya, Honorable members of Parliament, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Article 132(1)(a) of the Constitution of Kenya requires the President to address the opening of each newly elected Parliament. In this regard, pursuant to the provisions of Article 132(1)(a) of the Constitution and the provisions of Standing Order number 21 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, and by Gazette Notice number 11265, which was published on 23rd September 2022, I gave notice of this joint sitting to the members of the National Assembly. Accordingly, honorable members, this joint sitting is properly convened. Your Excellency, it is also custom of Parliament to recognize invited guests seated at the Speaker's row, public servants' bench, and the Speaker's gallery. I therefore wish to recognize the following guests who are seated in the Speaker's row. Her Excellency Rachel Ruto, First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, and members of the First Family. His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, Deputy President of the Republic, and Mama Pastor Dorcas. We are also pleased to host the former Vice President of the Republic, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, EGH. Also in the Speaker's row this afternoon are former Speakers of the Houses of Parliament, the Right Honorable Justin B.N. Muturi, my immediate predecessor, and the Right Honorable Governor Kenneth Lusaka, EGH. Your Excellency, allow me to also recognize the Chairperson of the Council of Governors, the Honorable Anne Waiguru, EGH, who is the Governor of Kirinyaga County. Also present is the Honorable Johnston Sakaja, Governor of Nairobi County, the Honorable Martine Moshisho, Chairperson of the Deputy Governor's Caucus, who is the Deputy Governor of Kajiado County. Also in the Speaker's row is the Honorable David Maraga, EGH, former Chief Justice of Kenya. I equally recognize one George Luchiri Wajakoya, who was a presidential candidate in the last general election. Your Excellency, last but not least, allow me also to give a special mention of the Chief of the General Staff, General Dr. Robert Kariuki Kibochi, and the respective service commanders, the Deputy Inspector General of the National Police Service, and other leaders of our disciplined forces that are all seated at the bar of the House. We remain grateful for their distinguished service to this nation. Honorable members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my singular honor and privilege to invite His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, to address this special sitting of Parliament. I thank you. Your Excellency, please address the joint sitting of the Houses of Parliament.
Asanteni sana, tafadhali tuketi. The Honorable Speakers of the National Assembly and Senate, honorable members of the National Assembly and Senate, by the grace of God, it is my pleasure to this inaugural session of the 13th Parliament following the August 9th general elections. It is important to note that we have made very positive progress. This Parliament has recorded the highest number of re-elected members of Parliament ever. In the National Assembly, a record 193 members have been re-elected, 50 more than were re-elected in 2017. While in the Senate, 17 senators have been re-elected. This confirms the increased confidence of the people of Kenya in their leaders and institutions, affirming the maturity of our democracy. Another milestone is the election of women legislators elected into single-member constituencies. In this year's election, 29 women were elected members of the National Assembly, 6 more than were elected in 2017. This is a manifestation of the growing confidence in the contribution of women leadership in decision-making, in our governance, and in our political institutions. I am certain that this positive trend will continue into the future. It is also instructive that the same confidence in Parliament has been shown in the executive. In 2013, the President was elected with at least 25% of voters in 30 counties, 34 counties in 2017, and 39 counties in the just concluded elections. Again, further demonstrating the deepening pluralism and inclusivity of our democracy. I therefore take this special opportunity to congratulate all of you on your election in the last general election and the subsequent nominations of our nominated members of Parliament. The confidence demonstrated by Kenyans in us and our institutions should inspire us to raise the bar in our service to the nation and accountability to the electorate. It is also my singular honor to congratulate our speakers, the Honorable Moses Wetangula and the Honorable Amason Kingi, for overwhelming confidence of members to preside over the respective houses of Parliament. I also congratulate members who have been elected to parliamentary leadership positions and wish each one of you wisdom, strength, and success in steering our legislative affairs. We gather here on the tranquil side of a competitive election where we all came to grips with the turbulent energies of political competition that characterize our uniquely Kenyan brand of democracy. It is true, this election was an intensely contested election. Nevertheless, that it was peaceful and democratic again confirms the coming of age of our democracy. I submit to you that the fact that the election was so close is an indication that what unites us is always much more greater than what divides us. With the support of Kenyans, we have dislodged ethnicity as the central organizing principle of our politics, thereby retiring for good the ethnic mobilization and personality cults, together with their culture and practices of exclusion, discrimination, patronage, tribalism, and nepotism. We took this assignment further with a paradigm shift of issue-based political leadership anchored in credible platforms, feasible programs, and transformative commitments aimed at positively affecting the well-being of all Kenyans from the bottom up. In summary, and this only happens, by the way, in Kenya, the sitting deputy president became the candidate of the opposition. And the leader of the opposition became the candidate of government. And as things would be, the opposition candidate won the election and became president. And the president became the leader of the opposition party. That's the beauty of our democracy. And it only happens in Kenya. In the process, we also affirmed the sovereignty of the people of Kenya as the ultimate decision makers as envisaged in the Constitution. I promise to lead an administration dedicated to the just and fair government of all Kenyans in order to deliver a Kenya for everybody. I commit to be the loyal, hard-working, devoted president of every Kenyan, and my administration will serve all without regard to any distinction, real or imagined. Certainly, service delivery under my administration shall be impartial, regardless of political affiliation or voter preference. Kenya is our home, and we remain united as one strong family. For these reasons, I want to persuade you that the legislative agenda I stand here to prosecute deserves the bipartisan support of this House. My administration is pursuing a transformational program that offers a uniquely all-Kenyan moment, which calls for unity of purpose in the legislature. We are committed to serving all Kenyans in all wards of each constituency and all counties in every region throughout the Republic of Kenya. After all, we all serve the same boss, the people, and their sovereign interests are our operating principle and purpose. I will run an administration that is open, that is transparent, and my administration will rely on oversight from this House to make sure the public gets value for every cent invested in every policy, project, and program. Consequently, I ask Parliament to consider a mechanism in the standing orders to facilitate cabinet secretaries to articulate government agenda, explain policy, and answer questions on the floor of the House to enhance executive accountability to the people of Kenya through their elected representatives. On this matter of oversight and holding government accountable, my administration commits to restore the place of Parliament in our democracy by respecting the autonomy and oversight authority of Parliament on the executive. Equally, I am a firm believer in democracy and the rule of law. That is why my first executive action when I took office was to undo a legacy of acts and omissions that had incrementally undermined the independence of the judiciary. For avoidance of doubt, the judiciary is an arm of government just like Parliament, and my administration will be intentional in respecting the constitutionally mandated systems of checks and balances. It is in this spirit that I will be seeking additional resources to support the bottom-up scaling of justice and empower the judiciary to acquire capacity and develop the infrastructure needed to more efficiently adjudicate and expeditiously conclude corruption cases, commercial disputes, and all other matters that today are a huge backlog on the judiciary. Honorable members, to implement the pledges and commitments set out in our plan, my administration is committed to investing in the requisite enablers and infrastructure to provide a sound foundation for its execution. These are interventions intended to create a conducive environment for effective, efficient, and sustainable realization of our national transformation. We are on a mission to dramatically scale up productivity in agriculture and make sure that every Kenyan farmer, fisherman, and pastoralist contributes to sustainable economic growth by contributing to adequate and affordable food, generating greater incomes, and producing the raw materials required by the agro-industrial and manufacturing value chains. This will boost Kenya's export performance and create millions of jobs. Consequently, we have been deliberate in our efforts to restore sanity and introduce greater responsibility in the management of public resources. One significant intervention is the resolve to abandon consumption subsidies in favor of supporting and investing in production. This is why we have made available fertilizer to our farmers at cheaper rates of 3,500 per 50 kilogram bag, down from 6,500. We are exploring further mechanisms to bring these prices down. We have an obligation to redeem our pledge to our small traders, the hawkers, the mamambogas, the bodabodas, that every person who sells any good or service gets to work and earns a decent livelihood enough to place them on the path to wealth through saving and investment. The hustler economy has to flourish and form the foundation of broader economic transformation while catalyzing the widening of the national revenue base. Our agenda here is to take necessary measures to create an enabling environment for business people to thrive and decriminalize enterprise. Affordable credit makes a huge difference in the rate of business growth. Access to affordable credit is like a magic formula. The current Credit Reference Bureau approach of blacklisting debtors is zero-sum, punitive, and has arbitrarily locked millions of businesses out of the credit system. It is time to shift the formula to a credit scoring system which allows lenders to apply customer segmentation and at the same time end the stigma of blacklisting. We have held productive conversations with operators of the Fuliza and M-Shwari platforms on the modalities of reducing their lending rates. I am happy to report today that yesterday, our engagement finally culminated in undertaking by the platform operators to reduce the cost of credit by 50%, and this is a significant step towards unlocking billions of shillings needed to spur economic activity by once again expanding financial inclusion. My administration will allocate resources every year to the Hustler Fund, from which micro, small, and medium enterprises can access affordable credit to start and expand their businesses. I promised yesterday that we will leverage on technology in the management and disbursement of these funds. And shortly, we will be bringing to this House the legislation and the regulatory framework to operationalize this fund. There is tremendous opportunity for this House to fully take up its role in resolving the systemic issues of limit to access affordable homes and affordable financing. This administration will unlock housing for the nation by doing a couple of interventions. Number one, we will work on the provision of land for affordable housing, both public and private. And number two, we will provide access to affordable and stable financing for those engaged in social, affordable housing across the country. These two measures will allow us to undertake mass housing production and thereby shape our approach to urban development and spatial planning, which, unlike before, will deliver sustainable and inclusive human settlement. I also wish to express our intention to bring to this House legislative proposals to provide a framework for a housing offtake plan, which will create incentives for developers to invest more money into our housing strategy and on the strength of guaranteed offtake of completed units. To actualize the enabling infrastructure, we intend to take the following steps. A public-private partnership funding framework is envisaged for large capital projects. In order to achieve our target of raising access to water from the current 60% to 80%, Kenya shillings 500 billion is required. Government can provide this gradually, but the private sector can mobilize it all at once. We will thus adopt a public-private partnership framework by entering into water purchase agreements with investors. I have already instructed the PPP unit at Treasury to work on the regulations that will facilitate the mechanism like we have in our energy sector for investors to work with us on a formula under a water purchase agreement instrument. This way, we will achieve water for all in less than a decade. Concerning electricity, we shall facilitate the development of innovative and effective modalities to provide better off-grid systems, including enabling consumers to form small cooperatives for that purpose. And in health, we are bound by duty to take measures to make universal health coverage a reality and liberate Kenyans and their families from the threat of harrowing poverty that stalks them every time a family member falls seriously ill. In our plan, and through your support, we will restructure our primary health system so that we put more resources into promotive, preventive, and early diagnosis. A key driver of this realization is the National Health Insurance Fund, whose restructuring is not only necessary for efficiency, but also enables it become a fit-for-purpose social insurance scheme that caters for all, including those suffering from chronic diseases. Digital technology has become a critical player in economic growth. We will capitalize on existing technology and innovation in the public and private sector to distribute the Hustler Fund as promised in our plan. I call upon financial institutions and our young people in innovation to participate in the digital economy by redesigning their products to serve the goal of empowering millions armed with grand ideas and are only waiting for the funds to finance their dreams to reality. Honorable speakers, honorable members, I have news, and it is not very good news. Our financial situation is not very good. For Kenya to grow to an upper income country, we need to invest at least 25% of our GDP. Our current national savings is below 10% of our GDP, which translates to an investment savings deficit of 15% of our GDP. Over the last decade, we have sought to close this gap with public borrowing. This year alone, we budgeted to borrow $900 billion to finance both development and recurrent expenditure. You're all aware that our total collection is $2.1 trillion, which is only enough to pay debt and to pay salaries. Everything else, we have to borrow. The government, members, should never borrow to finance recurrent expenditure. It is not right, it is not prudent, it is not sustainable, it is simply wrong. We must bring ourselves and our country to sanity. Over the next 3 years, we must reverse this and go back to the situation where government contributes to the national saving efforts by keeping recurrent expenditure below revenue. To this end, I have instructed Treasury to work with ministries to find at least 300 billion shillings in this year's budget so that we can remove it, because the market cannot sustain the kind of borrowing we are doing as government. Next year, we will bring it further down so that by the third year, we have a recurrent budget surplus. This we must do, members, because it is the right thing for us to do. On the revenue side, I am committed and determined to ensure that our tax system is responsive to the needs of the economy. It must be equitable, efficient, and customer-friendly. The economic principle of equitable taxation requires that the tax burden reflects ability to pay. This is best achieved by a hierarchy that taxes wealth, then consumption, then incomes, and lastly trade, in that order of preference, so that those who are wealthy and have the capacity to pay should pay more, and those at the bottom of the pyramid should pay what is proportional. This is best achieved by our tax regime that is different from our current tax system, which falls way far short of this. We are overtaxing trade and undertaxing wealth. We will be proposing tax measures that begin to move us in the right direction. We will also work with the Kenya Revenue Authority on a culture change to make it a people-friendly customer-centric organization. I am of the view that we should rename it the Kenya Revenue Service in line with the proposed transformation. The very large government borrowing requirements has also undermined the business sector contribution to national savings and investment efforts. These measures outlined above will also address the problem of government crowding out the private sector from the credit market. It will encourage banks to go back to lending to businesses and also bring down interest rates so that the private sector can also contribute to reducing the savings investment deficit. In many countries, social security, and particularly pension systems, contributes significantly to the national savings. Our current social security infrastructure, both public, that is the NSSF, and private, only cater for people in formal employment, thereby excluding the vast majority of working Kenyans. There is no retired Kenyan today who is living on their NSSF retirement benefits. The meager current contribution of Kenya shillings 200 a month adds up to 72,000 over 30 years. There is no rate of return on earth that can grow this into an adequate pension. I mean, we just have to be honest with ourselves. You cannot pretend that you are saving by saving 200 shillings. And it happens across board. Not surprising, many Kenyans scramble to provide for themselves by investing in the 50 by 100 plots of land, thereby exacerbating the problem of land fragmentation, price inflation, as well as land fraud. We intend to overhaul our social security infrastructure to make it inclusive, to encourage those excluded to save. I will be proposing a national savings drive to encourage those in the informal sector to set up their retirement savings plan. For every 2 shillings saved in the scheme, up to a maximum of 6,000 a year, the government will contribute a shilling for every 2 shillings saved by the private sector. Meaning that every Kenyan who will save 6,000 a year, the government of Kenya will give them 3,000 shillings. As part of the response to the ongoing drought, we have embarked on distribution of relief supplies to 3.5 million Kenyans who are affected by drought in 23 arid and semi-arid counties. The ultimate solution to the drought cycle in our country is mitigation of climate change and its adverse effects. We must act urgently to keep global heating levels below 1.5 degrees centigrade, help those in need, promote the use of renewable energy, and thus end addiction to fossil fuels. Honorable members, I know the contribution to the National Government Constituency Development Fund has made in making life better for our citizens. Having served in Parliament for 15 years, before and after the establishment of the National Government CDF, I know the difference it makes is monumental. I believe there is a way CDF can be aligned to the tenets of the Constitution. In this regard, I also extend to add that both houses should also be adequately resourced for oversight duties. With regard to the Senate and its constitutional mandate, I believe the two houses should work together to set up the Senate Oversight Fund. This will be used to provide oversight of the millions of resources that are sent to counties. Honorable members, the people of Kenya rightly expect much of us. We have our work cut out. This is our chance to achieve real change by working together to make Kenya a land of equal opportunity for all, where every Kenyan is proud to call home. Let us all play our part in the service of our employers, the people of Kenya. I will be making other statements going into the future. I will make my statement today short. May the good Lord bless you, and God bless the great people of Kenya. Thank you.
Honorable members, kindly let us take our seats. Honorable members, please be upstanding. Your Excellency, the President, the Right Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, honorable members, we have come to the conclusion of the business of the day, and it is now time to adjourn. The Senate stands adjourned until Tuesday, 4th of October 2022 at 2:30 p.m. in the Senate Chamber, Parliament Buildings.
Honorable members, the National Assembly will equally stand adjourned until Tuesday, 4th October 2022 at 2:30 p.m. And before we adjourn, my apologies to the members of the judiciary, those who carried my speech, left out the acknowledgement of our members of the judiciary present in the House. Apart from the Chief Justice, we also have the Deputy Chief Justice, Honorable Philemon Mwilu. We have Justice Daniel Musinga, President of the Supreme Court, of the Court of Appeal. We have Lady Justice Hannah Okwengu, Justice of Appeal. We have Honorable Justice Eric Ogola, Principal Judge of the High Court. We have Honorable Lady Justice Maureen Onyango, Principal Judge of the Employment and Labor Courts of Kenya. And we have the Honorable Anne Amadi, Chief Registrar of the Judiciary. Your Excellency, Honorable members, may I take this opportunity to invite all honorable members and our guests to our reception at the Parliament courtyard. May I also request all honorable members and our guests that you remain standing in silence in your places until the procession of His Excellency the President, the speakers, the Supreme Court judges, and the spiritual leaders leave the House. If the Honorable Chebukati is present in the House, we also all the honorable members, on your behalf, I have the distinct honor to acknowledge his presence. Thank you.
Right, there you have it, short and sweet. President William Samoei Arap Ruto's first address to the joint sitting of Parliament, Kenya's bicameral Parliament, outlining his legislative agenda. It has been a big week for the head of state. Of course, earlier in the week, he did announce his first cabinet. And of course, today, the first sitting of the 13th Parliament being officially opened today, the president making some key remarks there of what he intends to do in terms of his agenda inside the 13th Parliament. Of course, addressing all members of both the National Assembly and the Senate. We're seeing live pictures there on your screen. The members of Parliament just making their way out. And of course, some of what he has said, the president, one of something that jumps out at you is that he has promised to push a bipartisan legislative agenda, saying he will be serving all members or the entire country in terms of course, through the representation in Parliament, both who support him and, of course, who don't support him, saying we'll be empowering the National Assembly and the Senate to be able to provide the best oversight of the executive arm of government in the best way they can. And of course, we shall be speaking to various members of Parliament at Parliament buildings to find out what they have to say, their reactions to the President's inaugural address. Let's take you straight to Parliament buildings. And I understand my colleague, Kennedy Mureithi, is on standby for us. Kennedy Mureithi, if you can hear me, what have you been able to get from the President's inaugural speech? Do you have any members? What are they saying to some of the things part of the President's legislative agenda?
Well, a very good afternoon to you, Ben. And just in the next few minutes, we'll be seeing a number of members of Parliament who will be streaming out of that particular door, beaming with expectations, everybody wanting to speak to the media, trying to what they believe President William Ruto was saying in his speech. But even as they do so, there are some key issues that we have picked, even one that you have mentioned, where President Ruto will be expecting to get bipartisan support from this particular house as he moves forward. There are a number of legislative agendas that he has said that his government will be bringing forth to this particular house. Remember, those two houses are key and distinct, but very important in the running of government. And most of his speech, that is the shortest that I have seen since I started covering Parliament, where we saw that President Uhuru Kenyatta will come and speak for about 2 hours or so. So we were expecting, and even it has caught us unawares, that the president has spoken for about 30 minutes or so, something less than an hour. But most of the time we will see the president speaking for so long. So President Ruto has said that today I am here, I have spoken, but he will be saying more as he moves forward. So what we have seen here for now, he is giving probably. And Manduku, how are you, sir? And coming from the Azimio side, do you think President William Ruto has captured some of the expectations that you as a coalition would want addressed by this administration?
Thank you. I think generally the President has glossed over all the issues that are affecting our country today. But then I was a bit disappointed because he did not talk about our vision, the Vision 2030, that we know had anchored the development of this country and given a trajectory. All he was to do is to give it some meat and then align all his proposals to the Vision 2030 so that we know where we shall be in the year 2030, a middle-level economy. Then, of course, I thought he would talk about the human resource that is required, especially the unemployment issue, and give us real facts and pick out areas that his government will ensure a fast track. For example, we thought he would talk about employment of teachers, the 300,000 teachers who are out. Give us a strategy. He talked about getting money from government. You talk about privatization, because we've got about 150 state corporations that are eating our money. So you would have said, let us close this down, because we must face the hard facts. Otherwise, I think he captured the globe, but in a general manner. We thought he would go to the specifics, but we are here to help him.
But he has said that he will be talking more about this, and probably also to get your view, he has said that there are some issues that needed to be captured. You, as a member of the Kenya Kwanza coalition, what do you think is the key take-home from the President's speech today?
I think the President has been very clear from the time he was sworn in that this will be a government of more doing than talking. And he has clearly said there and again that we won't continue talking anymore. We'll start doing, and Kenyans will start seeing what is being done. I think today was not a budget-leading day. The President would not have gone to all those many issues, but he has clearly said that, one, we need to invest as a country, we need to save more as a country so that we get money to develop our country. He has said we need to reduce on borrowing, and he has said we are going to reduce spending in ministries. If you go to so many ministries, there is so much useless spending, money that does not go to development projects. So I think the President has been clear, and we are optimistic as Kenyans that he will be a game changer in this country.
Well, what are your expectations? What do you believe the President captured, and what did he not capture?
Thank you very much. I think basically the President captured the aspirations of Kenyans, the steps that he's going to take, especially on the economy. One other thing that I'm happy about is the issue of drought, especially that is ravaging 23 ASAL counties. And he has talked about the issue of how to mitigate the drought going forward. And I'm happy that as the President has acknowledged that drought is here with us, and that is encouraged all stakeholders, government, actors and non-state actors, to be fully appraised of the fact that drought is here with us and that we need to do mitigating factors. So I want to encourage and praise the President for acknowledging that there's drought and something has been done by the government. Thank you.
Well, there is that issue that the President has spoken about, and that is the issue of Fuliza and these applications where Kenyans go to get money from. Do you think that that is a step in the right direction that will probably move into lowering what Kenyans expect to get from it?
You know, the President campaigned on the platform of the Hazara Nation. So actually, his speech is set on the common man. If you look at the kind of problems that we are facing, quite a number of people are under Fuliza and CRB, and I think once we get relief from Fuliza and CRB, then our people are going to get elevated to the economy.
Well, there is the issue of irrigation, and President William Ruto is very keen on moving from rain-fed agriculture and into irrigation. How do we achieve this, even as he speaks about partnerships with the private sector?
When you run away from funding consumption and fund productivity, you expand our food productivity in the country. That is where the President wants to go. With irrigation, we'll have surplus of food for consumption both locally and even the surplus for export. So I think that one of the President was on point, and it's an excellent move. It's a move that we applaud.
Mheshimiwa Alpha, do you think the youth agenda has been tackled well by the President, knowing that he has said that we'll be speaking more as he moves forward?
I think he tried to tackle the youth agenda, but he never went deep inside how he solved the problems of the youths. But to me, he tried to give us how we can go in this government to solve the problems of the youth. But to me, I was not really fully satisfied that he tackled the youth agenda in this nation. But I agree with him, other areas, he really tried to harmonize. For example, introducing public partnership is the best for the country now. But I think it's in the best as in the best to make this country move forward.
Mheshimiwa, I also see that the Cabinet Prime Minister is here, and probably we could get some of your views and also from your leader, because I do know that you come from the UDA party. With regards, probably if I could get him then speak to you. How are you? Yes. Okay. Hi, how are you, sir?
Hi. Hey, wait.
You are one of the biggest supporters of the economy, and it has been one of your biggest campaign tools. Now, President William Ruto has spoken a number of issues on how we are finding our economy and how bad it is. Do you believe that you, as the Kenya Kwanza government, have enough safeguards to make sure that we get out of the hole that we are in within the shortest time possible?
My friend, we have no choice. The economy was a very serious agenda item during the campaign trail. The Kenyans voted for us because they realized we were talking on the issues that were of concern to them. So we have no choice but to work hard and work smart and collectively to revamp the economy. I like the President's remarks on one thing. He did not mince his words. He said it as it is. All right? The first process of turning things around is to acknowledge that there is a challenge. Then now we can work towards dealing with that challenge.
Well, Prime Minister, one of the key roles that you will have moving forward is being the liaison between the national government and also Parliament. And there is a key role that you hold there, bringing together these members of Parliament. And he has said that he will be looking at a bipartisan approach. How do you intend to achieve this?
I think dialogue, my friend. Dialogue is so key. Respect for the members of Parliament, respect for the various institutions, and being forthright on the issues that have to be addressed. I think honesty and trust is going to be so important in this journey, and we must build it from the word go, and that is what I intend to do.
You also, as the Cabinet, as the Prime Minister, there is one issue that the President has spoken to, and this is the issue of appeasing the members of the Senate by introducing the Oversight Fund. Do you believe at a time like we are in the country, it is a key figure?
I don't think he was appeasing them. I think he's saying that there's need to enhance accountability. All right? There are a lot of resources that are also being lost in the counties, and the senators must have the wherewithal to provide their oversight role. This has not been there. All right? So setting up resources to allow them to become more effective in the oversight role is absolutely important, because the resources with a good oversight role is likely to save more resources and unlock them for development in other areas. So I don't think it's a misplaced approach at all. It is the process of ensuring that there's a smooth running of the Senate. Remember, people, the initial debate around the Senate was to make it the upper house and give it more clout. These are the things we need to do. Equally, you heard him talk about his commitment to enhance support to the judiciary. This is a constitutional requirement. For the last 10 years, the judiciary has been starved of its requirement. All right? So it is never too late to start correcting what was wrong. All right? And those are good steps for us to move forward. Can you imagine when you have the judiciary fully automated, you have them with all the technology, can you imagine how many cases they'll unlock?
You will have efficiency.
Yeah. So we must have efficiency, we must have accountability.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Prime Minister, and congratulations. Hoping to come to your office to say hello. Well, Mheshimiwa Tetumu, how would you say that the President's speech was, and how do you believe it spoke to each and every Kenyan, even those that did not vote for him?
First of all, may I acknowledge that the President's speech was very good. It was short and precise, not a lengthy one, but he ensured that the Kenyans are given what they demand. For example, he said he will not be focused more on subsidies touching consumption, but rather subsidies that will deal with the development. He has also intended that there will be an oversight team to oversee how the counties spend the resources that are channeled to them. On the Asola Fund, he has also intended that there will be a model to govern that fund so that it can trickle down to the Kenyans and benefit the Asolas there. And he has also mentioned something to do with the small medium enterprises, and already he has formed a ministry that will entrench and make sure that the small and medium enterprises are uplifted. And by so doing, he will be making sure that his agenda during the campaign is achieved.
Well, just before I go to my colleague Vincent Odoro on the other side, we have Mheshimiwa, and there is the women agenda in the president's speech. Do you believe it was tackled very well?
It was well tackled. First of all, the president has recognized women leadership, and it appears that he's ready to support women leadership. We've just seen it from this nomination of...
Well, the president is passing. Probably we could get to hear from him if he's going to give us that opportunity. But we can see President William Ruto walking and even saying hello to the members of parliament who have lined up to hear from him, and just probably get a hello. There is a lot of pushing. Mr. President, hello. How are you, Mr. President? Well, the president has moved, and as there is a huge scramble, everybody wanting to speak to the president, even a photo with him. There is a lot of push and pull as everybody tries to catch the eye, the president's eye. But I'm being asked to go. I'm being asked to take it to my colleague Vincent Odoro, who is on the other side, so that he could interview more people and get views from members who are on this side.
The support that comes with the CDF. So the president has encouraged us registrators to come up with necessary registration to be able to support and anchor this very important and critical fund. So it was a very good speech. Short, we are used to very lengthy speeches. We were actually thinking he was quarter way, only to be surprised. And he has captured all the necessary, all the key points that Kenyans are eager to hear him address. He has addressed matters to do with judiciary. He has addressed matters to do with KRA, making KRA revenue correction a friendly affair. I think that's something very important, because you know, when you hear KRA, most of the times you think these are people who are out to make your life difficult. We want to support the president in what he has said or proposed, that we change that name from Kenya Revenue Authority to Kenya Revenue Service, because really we need to work together. It's very important to correct revenue to be able to support government programs, but this exercise needs to be a friendly one. This doesn't also be a very difficult thing for Kenyans. Thank you.
Thank you so much, GK. Thank you so much, DK. Lebatunge naye pia, what do you make of today's speech? Having heard the speech, what do you make of it?
Thank you very much. My name is Wakil Edward Moreu, a member of parliament for Gatanga constituency, and I would say today the president's speech is outstanding. Number one, because it was very short and brief, and number two, because it was very precise to the point. And I would say maybe a few highlights about this speech. Now, other than the length of the speech, which has been very short but very precise, is that the president has been able to pick up the actual pain points for Kenyans. Number one, it's about the subsidies for our farmers. And he has addressed and said, look, we should be able to support what we call production as opposed to consumption. That is very outstanding. Number two, it's about the Hustler Fund, whereby we need to have a fund where we be supporting our farmers, SMEs, and everybody in business, Mamamboga and everybody else, in such a way that there is a legislation to ensure those funds are well catered for, they're able to work. And thirdly, it's again very, very key, is to ensure that as we go along in this journey of development, we bring in a responsive cabinet, whereby we bring them to what we call the floor of the house and ask them questions in such a way that each member of parliament will have an opportunity to be able to have the issues in the constituencies addressed on the floor of the parliament.
Thank you so much. And then we are joined here with another member of parliament. What do you make of today's President Ruto's speech, having been there for that long?
Thank you, Irene from Bahati. This is the best that I've had, even as a new member. It quite resonates with us and the people of Kenya, and especially the people of Bahati. For me, what I have picked, which is really good for my people, is the saving culture, about the hustler fund, the saving that we are going to achieve, and if you save, the government will actually just give you, if you save 6,000, we'll be able to get 3,000 at the end of the year. The other thing is NSSF, which we are going to increase. The other issue is about KRA, which is going to be more of a friendly service rather than a service that chases the people. And all other things that he has talked about, quite interesting and quite short, precise and detailed to the people of Kenya. And I'm very, very, very happy for that. Asante sana.
Thank you so much, Mr. We have your former Kwale governor who is here also. You've heard President Ruto's speech. What do you make of it?
First of all, I think the president's speech was very, very inspiring because, you know, within it, he has committed to Kenyans that the government will do all it's possible to revive the economy and that we will be able to strengthen accountability. And that is why cabinet secretaries will be required to come to parliament to explain the policy and also to answer questions from members of parliament. So I think that emphasis on accountability is really great for Kenya, and we are looking forward. And being a nominee in the cabinet, I think we are looking forward to make sure that we implement.
Well, a very good afternoon. The last time we were speaking, President William Ruto was passing, and Mheshimiwa has insisted that she has to, first of all, finish her point. And we were talking about the women agenda in the William Ruto government. Do you believe that this is the right time to talk about it, and how should it be approached?
First of all, I want to thank our president for really recognizing women in leadership. This has already been proven by the nominations that he has already done in the cabinet. In his speech, he first began by congratulating all the women who have been re-elected and those that have been elected. He has really insisted on bottom-up. And in our country, we really believe that women are the most bottom. When we refer to bottom-up, we refer to women being moved from the bottom to up. What has really entertained me and really made me happy in his speech is the issue of decriminalization of enterprises. Kenya is a very hard-working nation. We've seen young men and women start the enterprises, more businesses, but the government has been there and Kenya revenue disturbing them and really taxing them. We want a Kenya whereby people are free to do their businesses, where they're not so taxed. Let the Kenya revenue become not an authority, but a service to ensure that Kenyans are really helped, that the small enterprises that we begin as workers and whatever we do, that we are not decriminalized. We are not criminalized, such that Kenya is set free. Let us see really decriminalization of small business enterprises.
Well, thank you very much. One of the questions that will come out is how important is moving KRA from an authority to a service?
Now, I think that will improve service delivery for this nation, because if we have it as a service industry, then as opposed to an authority, that means it shall improve service delivery for this country. I think that is one of the key highlights in this speech. But above all, I think this time round we have a president who is a man of the people, because the way he has articulated the issue at the floor of the House, we are so excited and we are so happy as legislators. One of the issues that I think we need to touch is that he has implored upon the members of National Assembly to have an amendment to the standing orders so that we can have members of the CSs to appear before the floor of the House. I think that's one of the issues that I take home this day. Number two, I think the issue to do with the issue to do with CDF. I think he has acknowledged that CDF has done a lot for this country. And if it is aligned to the Constitution, I think it is something that as members of National Assembly, we are so much proud of, and we'll take it up as MPs. Thank you so much.
Well, welcome. We can all speak about this. And what is your take home from the President's speech today?
I think the take home from the President's speech is about CDF. There were a lot of worries that CDF will go away. But I think from today now, everybody is rest assured that CDF will not go anywhere. The President has talked about it, and that shows his goodwill about it. Yeah.
Well, Mheshimiwa, also getting from you, what is the important take-home, noting that the President is acknowledging that the country has a problem and we have to fix it?
Yeah, very true. The President has acknowledged a lot of things, but unfortunately, I am concerned about the issue of the drought. The President has not adequately addressed the issue of drought. I'm a pastoralist. I know the problems that my people are facing down there, but today he has addressed it casually. According to me, it was not the best response we were expecting from him. Generally, he gave a lot. He was overambitious, I believe so. He was overambitious. He was talking about there is no money in the government. That was the bad news he admitted, and that was very courageous of him. And also, he was given a very overambitious project. I don't know how that will going to work hand in hand, but let's see. Let's give them time. We are opposition. We will wait them. We'll give them time. We'll respond to them on appropriate time. But for the drought, I'm not really satisfied about it.
Do you also believe that the President's speech was ambitious?
No, it was not ambitious. It is a speech which was short, precise, to the point, honest, achievable. On the issue of drought, I think he talked about it. Drought is something synonymous with water. He talked about water by saying that they will develop a private partnership, public-private partnership with the water, whatever investors. So that issue of perennial water problem can be solved. And in decade, actually, you get a timeline saying that within this decade, water problem will be solved. He talked about health. He gave us the problem of NHIF. He came with a solution. He talked about agriculture. He said we will not go for consumer consumption subsidy, but we will go for production subsidy. He talked of NSSF. He was very comical about that with the 200 saving and 72,000 in 30 years. That is not something somebody can be proud of. It's not a pension scheme for that for somebody who's saving that 72,000. So we have to go back to our pockets, bring some more, save something. We are a consumer society. He's telling us we must be a saving society so that we can achieve that. So the President's speech was not overambitious. It is achievable. It had the problems. It had the solutions. And I'm telling Kenyans that he was actually giving us the picture, which is hanging, the portrait picture which is hanging at the back of our doors, which is the portrait of Edward Munch, which is a scream picture. And he's telling us we will change that to the picture of Leonardo da Vinci of Mona Lisa, beautiful lady.
Oh, thank you very much, Mheshimiwa. The glamorous Mheshimiwa from Thika Town. How are you, Mheshimiwa? And today's speech by President William Ruto has touched on a number of issues.
Correct.
What spoke to your heart?
What spoke to my heart? Let me first say the speech was short and to the point, precise and to the point. And I want to say what has touched my heart is about the savings. That Kenyans, we have to learn how to save so that we can help our economy. Right now, our economy is ailing. We are living beyond our means. There's no enough amount of money. And we are going back to the basic where we used to say agriculture is the backbone of our nation. We are going back to production. We are going to help our farmers with fertilizers, with seedlings. We see where we can. And when it comes to revenue collection, he has said that the institution is going to become more friendly so that it can accommodate many people who don't pay their taxes. It has to be coiled in a way that when you see the KRA officials, you don't run away. It is a duty that you are called upon to pay the revenue so that we can be able to pay the recurrent expenditure. Right now, even we are borrowing to pay the recurrent expenditure, which is a matter of paying salaries. So what has touched my heart is we must know how to save. We must know how to correct our revenue so that the current expenditure comes from us, comes from within, and we must go back to the basic. That is production, production, production.
Well, thank you very much. Mheshimiwa, what do you believe of what you take from the president's speech, and has it really spoken to your heart?
Thank you, Hussein Weitan from Mandera East. The president's address has really fallen short of our expectations. We expected him to elaborately come up with a plan where he talks about reducing the inflation rate of now our country, and coming up with a proper way of dealing with the living standards of Kenyans. What we came here with is just to talk about the promises. He has been talking about all this long, promises after promises, promises after promises. We expected him to come up with more elaborate policies and plans to convince us as parliamentarians.
So you're not convinced at all?
We are not convinced. In fact, other than small things about maybe the CDF issue, the drought matters. Even the drought issue is not well addressed, because we expect him to come up with a proper plan of how he is going to address the drought situation in most of the counties now, over 23 counties. So maybe we expected him to talk about the cash transfers that are now given to the people.
But the president has said that he will be speaking more as we move forward. Don't you think that is a promise enough, probably for bigger things to come?
You know, when you come to Parliament, address Parliament, this is where you are supposed to convince the leadership of the 290 constituencies. There is no better place than this. We expected him to convince us more, but he has really fallen short of it.
What about the promise of probably moving from a rain-fed agriculture and into irrigation in different parts of this country?
That is proper. We are in agreement, but there are short-term and long-term plans where he can address issues affecting the country right now. But we expected him to address more better and more brilliant, policies than what he did.
Well, the president has spoken about the drought management. Your colleague from Mandera East wants to believe that the president has not spoken and his speech has fallen short of the expectations of most Kenyans. Do you believe the same?
First of all, I want to say that this was a very comprehensive and all-rounded speech. Like Turma's speech of 1949, it gave a lot of fair deal to the Kenyans. The speech touched on everything we expected for him as a president. He did everything. He did very good. It touched on the Hustler Fund. It touched on housing policies. It touched on taxation. It touched on many other numerous sectors which will benefit the population. It touched on the bottom-up approach as opposed to the trickle-down approach which the country was operating with. But I want to say that on the question of drought, we expected the president to declare drought as a national disaster. He fell short on that. Other areas which he has not touched is areas on education. We have not seen the president speaking anything concerning education. It's a vital sector which we expected him to address. Other aspect I wanted the president to address is the question of contractors in Kenya have not been paid. They owe the government a lot of money, and they have not been paid. And this will really negatively impact on the economy of our country. We are, instead of paying the contractors, we continue giving new jobs. Like, when you see yourself in a hole, you must stop digging. We continue digging the hole, and this will have a great impact, negative impact on the economy of this country.
Thank you very much. Mheshimiwa from Limuru, how are you and what do you take of the president's speech?
First of all, I'm very grateful for the speech. It was brief, to the point. The president mentioned most critical things, that this economy is not doing well, that we have to do a lot to get it working. He has mentioned on the measures that we can take to ensure that this country starts saving for itself, that we cannot continue relying on borrowing, and particularly on current expenditure. I believe that his bottom-up economy he has already outlined how he expected to work and how he wants us to help. So I believe that we are on the right track. I know that we have a lot of work to do, but I believe there is future for this nation. We need to be honest with ourselves that there are many people who are currently suffering, not having enough to eat, no employment, and all together, if we work together, we can get this country working again.
Well, Mheshimiwa Osotsi, Senator for Vihiga, what do you make of the president's speech?
Well, for me, I listened very keenly to that speech, and I can say it was disappointing and below my expectation as a member of the Senate. Why am I saying so? Because we expected the president to tell us a lot more about how he's going to deal with the cost of living. You remember cost of living was one of his petty subjects during the campaigns. So we expected him to say how his government is going to deal with the problem in a specific manner of cost of living. Secondly, the president appeared to be making fresh promises. You see, he talked about adding more money to NSSF. I feel NSSF is in a chronic condition. There is a lot of corruption at NSSF, a lot of misinvestment at NSSF. I think the priority is to deal with that before you commit Kenyans into investing more money into NSSF, because that becomes a pitiless latrine where Kenyans are going to waste more money through corruption.
Just before I let you go, there's one thing that the president has spoken, and I don't see you faulting. And you as senators are going to be given an oversight fund. Do you still think that that is an overwhelming statement or an underwhelming statement from the president?
Well, one thing I want to agree with the president. First of all, he has acknowledged that BBI had some good provisions. Because you remember, CDF and Oversight Fund and World Development Fund were in BBI, which he vehemently rejected. Even the issue of ministers coming to answer questions in the House was in BBI. He rejected it. Now he's telling us to go to the standing orders. Standing orders is unconstitutional. For ministers to appear in the House, we must have substantive constitutional amendment. So welcome to the process of constitutional amendment, which you rejected and even said that in your administration, you will never even touch a comma in the constitution. Now the president reality has gotten him, and now we want to see how he's going to initiate the process of constitutional amendment, which us on this side of Azimio pushed for.
Thank you very much. Mheshimiwa Kawaya, I see you even donning the yellow tie to signify that you are in consonance with what the president said. Is there any iota that you do not agree with what the president said today?
Not at all. Of course, there are a few things he could have spoken about, like the fate of CBC, because I know many parents, there is a quagmire around the CBC. But the other things he spoke about, I think the speech was short and sweet, addressed a number of issues in a compact manner, and I think he has lived to his bill. He spoke about independence of the judiciary, independence of the parliament itself. You've seen in the past that parliament has been used to rubber stamp things from the executive, and from his speech you can tell that he intends to allow Parliament to do its work. You've even also heard him talk about oversight fund for the Senate. And he has also given us a clear indication of where we are as an economy. We are living beyond our means. And of course, we can't expect the president to overturn things in a day. In fact, when you get married, you can't start getting babies the following day. There has to be some amount of time that we have to give him to do his work. Part of it is also to engage Parliament so that we also support him with the legislations that he feels are important for him to be able to do the transformation. Part of that he's spoken about is universal health care. that there is no way a member of parliament should be paying 500 for NHIF when the Mamamboga and Boda person is paying 500. We have to pay based on our income. He also spoke about our saving scheme, and he wants to encourage us to save because it is for our own benefit. This is not a tax. If you pay 200, I mean, if you save 200 shillings, I mean, in 30 years, you've only saved 70,000, which can help you. In my mind, we expect a legislation that is going to be brought here by the executive so that we consider it, so that we can also look at how do we change a bit on how we save so that at least Kenyans can safeguard their future. In summary, I think the speech was good. It addressed a number of issues. There are a number of issues that were left out, which were, of course, spoken about during his inauguration speech. And in summary, I think it was a job well done.
Well, was it a job well done?
4 out of 10. Because we already, as you are aware, we are already in the 100 days of President Ruto's time. What one I expected myself, which is critical today, is how to lower the cost of living, which is the biggest problem. No food on the table. Parents can't afford fees. You and I can't afford fuel. So that should have been the mode here. Secondly, you can't talk about saving when people can't afford a living. You save what you have. How do you save what you don't have? People don't have. They want to have before you save. So we should be talking on the how we will get people to have some money for them to be able to save. Thirdly, Omwami, I'm very worried that the president's advisors do not know that you cannot use standing orders to bring a minister on the floor of the House. It is a constitutional issue. The making of the 2010 Constitution separated Parliament from the executive. And that's what it is. He now wants a mixed breed. He refused BBI. That's the only one which was creating a mixed breed. It's not doable.
Well, those are sentiments with regards to what President William Ruto has done and what he intends to do, as he now gives him a 4 out of 10. But on this other side, there are members of parliament interacting with the president and also others who are, what do we call it? They are having a meal. Some of them are even going as far as where the president is, just to have a word with him and all that, even as they wait for this particular session to end. And I'm looking for my colleagues whom we were with, as we also try to see on that end. We can see there is some activity, some of the leaders of these two houses, as they interact and also as they hear from the president. We can see a number of them where the president is interacting, and there is the Prime Cabinet Secretary, that is Musalia Mudavadi, and a number of the leadership of the Kenya Kwanza Brigade, even as they come here. Well, I see Mheshimiwa Ndindi Nyoro, Kiharu Member of Parliament, Ndindi Nyoro, who is here. Probably we could get a view from him. And well, Mheshimiwa, how are you? You're one of the people that I have spoken to every time the president has come to address the nation here in Parliament. Today is the time for President William Ruto. How different is it this time round?
Mureithi, I'm sure you listened to His Excellency the President. The speech was short, precise, but also meticulous. It was a very practical speech on the things that he has been able to achieve so far, and we are very optimistic that for sure Kenya is on the right track. He talked about the debt, which is a very weighty issue in our economy. He talked about the issues of farmers and all the other issues that we promised to the Kenyan people. Everything is incremental and everything is gradual, and we are hopeful that for sure Kenya will be a different place in all areas. We have a very hard-working president. We have a very meticulous president. We have a very forward-looking president. And above all, a person who knows what the common mwananchi goes through. because all his life, schooling from basic to higher, has been in Kenya. He's a real Kenyan president, and today's speech was very good.
There is the question that has come up, and it is the question on saving, where President William Ruto has been very keen on, and this is the question of saving. But however, there are those members of parliament who say that the financial troubles the country are in right now, the most important is to put something in your pocket, then create time to save. Is that the reality, or we can still do both at the same time?
Morethi, you know, the truth of the matter is that if you do a comparative analysis of Kenya and other countries, you realize that the money that we borrow as a country, what we call external debt, most of this money is actually borrowed from either saving schemes of other countries, like our current NSSF, even our current NHIF, the consolidated funds. And therefore, when you encourage saving in a country, you create a pool of resources that can be actually spent internally. Just to give you an example, if our NSSF had enough resources, they'll actually be able to build even such a project like the expressway. We pay them toll so that even the Kenyan shilling gets another Kenyan shilling. Now what we have in the current scenario is that maybe a dollar or a yen is getting a Kenyan shilling. That is how important saving is in terms of the macroeconomy of our nation.
Thank you very much. Well, Ben, I'm being told to get back to you, even as we continue to listen to more of the views of members of parliament, even as they insist that this day has been one of those, Nene Nyoro insisting that the president's speech has captured everything that they wanted. You could say a word, even as we also speak to the senator for Nandi. How was the president's speech for you?
Thank you. There are a couple of things and a number of things that were very encouraging. While there are more that I was hoping to hear, especially this issue of fuel and the subsidy. Kenyans are really struggling, and so even as we look at long term in terms of production, Kenyans really like to know how this is going to go down. Secondly is the issue of CDF, NGCDF, which is a very good thing, and I'm happy to hear that the President and the national government are ready to work to ensure that as members of parliament we do CDF so that we continue serving Kenyans.
Well, Senator, how was the president's speech?
I think it was short and precise and talked to Kenyan issues, more so the issue of food security, cost of living, its legacy in terms of universal health coverage, the use of savings, and I think this is the future we want. I think the president said that they will be having issues that will ensure they put in place and focus on the economy. So I think that largely the speech of the president has shown what he wants to engage Kenyans with. And what is important, has emphasized the issue of oversight and accountability. And I think that one will allow parliamentarians to do the oversight and accountability without fear from reprisal that we saw in the last regime. And I think by all and large, the issue of public debt is a great concern. I hope the president can come up with proposals and pragmatic issues on how to resolve the issues of public debt that is getting out of control.
Do you think it was the right decision to give parliamentarians an oversight fund?
It's actually not parliamentarians, it's
the
senator. I will be honest with you, Murithi. Personally, I've done a letter this afternoon to the Speaker, whereby I'm seeking to amend the Constitution to entrench CDF in the Constitution, to entrench USO fund into the Constitution, to entrench GAF fund into the Constitution, to entrench youth fund in the Constitution, and to entrench Senate oversight fund in the Constitution. Why? Because as a senator, you must have resources to go and oversight your county and what is happening in their county. The biggest problem we are complaining about counties is because there is very little oversight. And you know very well, senators are the high to oversight counties. So for me, from where I'm seated, it's not only because of the speech of the president. Personally, I will share with you the letter itself, whereby we are seeking to amend the Constitution, and I believe it will get full support of all the members.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm also on this other side looking for my colleagues, Duncan Haemba and Vincent Oduor, just trying to get what this has been all about, even as President William Ruto now says that it is more about what the government needs to do. And probably, Vincent Odwor, you've also gotten views from the different members of parliament who are speaking to you. And what is this thing that is coming out strongly about the president's speech?
I think one of the things that has come out really strongly when you talk to a number of several members of parliament is the position by President Ruto that he will ensure they're able to align, CDF with the constitution so that it continues to exist. Because, most members of parliament maintain that CDF is very crucial, especially when it comes to community development, and they've been relying on this fund to be able to issue, bursaries to their constituents, and also to be able to fund a number of community development projects in their constituencies. And also this issue that came up about the Senate Oversight Fund, because, most of them are saying these will empower financially the senators to be able to have resources, to be able to oversight the county governments, because there's no way, they're arguing that there's no way a senator will be told to oversight a county that is being given, let's say, maybe 10 billion shillings, and yet they have not even funds to even facilitate their movement, facilitate their oversight activities, including even investigations. And therefore, those are the things that seems to have excited the members of parliament, and they are looking forward to really make sure that that comes to pass. I don't know from your side, what else again really stood out when you having talked to majority of them?
Well, there are different views that have come up with regards to this president's speech. There are those that believe, and those in the opposition, and Azimio One Kenya believe that it was completely underwhelming. There are those in the Kenya Kwanza team that believe that the president spoke very well, and it was very important that he does so. But however, we are still keeping tabs, and we'll be giving you more in our subsequent bulletins. But right now, we have to get out of parliament as the party continues, and we go to prepare stories for 7 and 9. Back to you, Ben.
Many thanks, Kennedy Mureithi and Vincent Odwor, part of our team at William Ruto's inaugural speech before addressing the parliament, joint sitting of both the National Assembly and the Senate. And of course, he has touched on a number of things in a very short speech, which has elicited mixed reactions. Of course, some members saying it was short and precise and sweet, had everything. Others saying it was too short. They think that he glossed over issues. But of course, just to touch on some of the issues, he said he will push for bipartisan legislative agenda going forward the next 5 years, saying he will have unity, he will seek for unity of purpose as he seeks to bring business before both houses. Of course, he did talk about him having seeking to have the parliament make him accountable, executive accountability, did call it. Of course, he says he wants to restore the place of parliament in the Kenyan democracy. We'll be covering this going forward to see how that plays out. Of course, one of the other things that he did say that his government will seek to find funds every year to power that much talked about Hustlers Fund. Did talk about, of course, reforming the Kenya Revenue Authority, saying that he seeks to rename it into the Kenya Revenue Service to be able to make it more efficient and more friendly to Kenyans. Of course, talked about the NSF deductions, his pet subject over the last few days, saying that he will push on with it, insisting that what is currently before Kenyans is not sustainable. Saving 200 shillings per month is not sustainable. He did also talk about saying, saying that we intend to evolve the social security infrastructure to make more inclusive. Shall be breaking this down for you later on. Of course, some breaking news coming from the Nairobi County Assembly. Let's take you to the County Assembly, where the new speaker is now addressing the House.
Assembly of Nairobi City, that I shall respect, uphold, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, and that I shall do right to all manner of persons in accordance to the Constitution of Kenya and to the laws and conventions of Parliament without fear, favor, affection, or ill will. So help me God.
Live pictures there from the Nairobi County Assembly as the new Speaker Kennedy Okeyo Ngondi has taken his oath of office. He will be serving the County Assembly of Nairobi as Speaker, taking over from Benson Mutura, who was locked out of the race earlier yesterday. To just bring you up to speed with the final tally there, this has been a day-long affair. Kennedy Ngondi of Azimio, of course, he's an ODM MCA, did garner 68 votes, having a slight advantage over UDS Robo, who garnered a total of 55 votes. That was in the second round of voting after none of them was able to garner a supermajority in the first round. Kennedy Ngondi Okeyo from the Azimio coalition is the new Speaker of the County Assembly of Nairobi. He garnered 68 votes in the second round of voting, just about against 55 votes that were garnered by UDA's Robo. So he has taken oath of office right now. Of course, he's signing his tenure to become the next speaker of the county of Nairobi. A very county assembly that is seen by pundits to be split right down the middle, but of course ODM and Azimio coalition by extension having the general majority in that county assembly. Interesting, of course, the governor is a UDM member. It's of county number 047. We shall be covering this for you to be able to see how Nairobians receive their services. Of course, we are continuing to break down what has been happening today from the County Assembly of Nairobi to the National Assembly, where both houses of Kenya's bicameral parliament were addressed for the first time in this 13th parliament by President William Ruto. We shall be getting deeper into Ruto's legislative agenda, of course, in a week which also saw the president name his cabinet. A very heavy week in terms of politics and governance. We are on hand here on NTV to give you a blow-by-blow account and, of course, deeper insights into this and other issues. Be sure to stay with us in our subsequent bulletins at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. for more and deeper coverage of this. Of course, on my show tonight, Front and Center, I shall be joined by the CCM party leader, former Bomet Governor Isaac Ruto, political analyst Barak Moluka, as well as lawyer and political analyst Martin Olo, to just give more insights into what has happened today at the floor of the House, and of course, give their insights on the President's inaugural cabinet. Stay with us.